Yeah, so if you remember a couple weeks ago when you were here last, we had this section of the garden all potatoes, and it was all green and pretty, and then it just died real quick like that. It died back. So it looked kind of startling or frightening to people who aren't gardeners. They were like, "Oh my gosh, what happened to your garden?"
Poor them,
something
right?
caught, something caught blight and died. And I was like,
Nope.
"No, that's just how potatoes are." So once they all die back and the tips of the plants have died back too, that's when you know you can harvest them. So we harvested them this past Wednesday when we had a lot of volunteer help.
That was nice. Yes.
And we have about 4 or 5 more of these inside. I forget. I need to remember my count, but we have a bunch of these inside, and yeah, the potatoes are looking really nice.
They're really nice. Now, one of the things you'll notice when you look at these potatoes is they have not been washed.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you don't want to do. When you dig them up out of the ground, don't get all tidy and scrub them down, because this dirt is part of that curing process. And so you'll want to leave it on, and you want to check your potatoes, because things happen when you dig them up.
Like this here.
You get a grumpy face, or you get skins on them, or different things like that.
Or skewers. We accidentally skewered a few with the pitchfork here.
Yeah. And so what you want to do then is to let these cure. And so by curing, we mean we're going to put them on a shelf or a screen or something that's going to have ventilation in them, and let them sit in a dark place for about 10 days to 2 weeks.
In a single layer too.
In a single layer. And that's what's going to hasten the forming of this brown skin. The thing you always see when you go to the grocery store. You pick up a potato and you see this brown skin. Now, the other thing that you might see from some of these, if I can grab one, see, this one doesn't have a hard skin on it yet. So this is more like what you'd get if you had a new potato. A new potato is the one that you pull out and you use it right then. The skin has not formed on it yet. So that's the trick with these. These guys you want to eat right away. These can be stored. And so when you say stored, how long do you mean? How long do you want to keep these potatoes?
Oh, forever.
No, not quite.
But you can keep them until winter or a little past then if you store them correctly. So, and even into next season, if you want to save some of these potatoes for next season's crop, because you can cut these up into little pieces. Let's see if we can find any with eyes. I don't know. Oh, here.
Oh, did you find one? Good.
So this will be an eye later. Can you see that? And that.
Yeah.
And that. So those ones will have little sprouts coming out in those little spots. So you can cut this once it's cured and everything's good to go. Once it's late spring, you can cut these up, or more Marchish. You can cut these out and just have that section. You want to have like 1 or 2 eyes, maybe 3 eyes per cut, and then you can plant those in a row, and each one of those will be a potato. So this is an entire field of potatoes, basically.
Which is pretty exciting.
Yeah,
but if you
really
want to store them for right now, say I've got family and I want to store these potatoes for, let's say, at least 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to keep them in a paper bag after they've cured, or in a cardboard box. And what I'm looking for is an area in my house. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't have a root cellar.
No, I don't either. I wish I did. Not in my apartment.
Yeah, the old farmhouse might have a root cellar in it, and most of us don't. So if you don't have a root cellar, you want to find the coolest, not necessarily driest place in your house, but not a damp place. I know that sounds confusing. So, but if you've got a wet basement, that's not a good home for these guys. They'll get all gross. And so what you want to do is keep them in a dark, because if they get light on them, they get that weird green.
Yeah. While you talk, I'm going to go find one.
Okay. And so you want to keep them in the dark. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can keep them in a dark room or a closet or in that box we talked about. Or there's even folks who would say that you can store them in layers of sand or sawdust. And so that's for deep storage. That'll take a long time. So if I'm going to store these guys for 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to be able to do the box method. If I want to keep them into winter and maybe through to next spring, I'm going to have to find a place that's cool. So I'm talking 40 degrees, not freezing, but 40 degrees. And so you'll have to scout around your house to find that. And no refrigerator. So the trick with these guys, do not refrigerate them. They don't like it because what it does is it causes the potato to generate too much sugar within itself. And so when you do cut it up to use it, if you're going to cook it, whether it's fries or some other method, the potato will brown because it's got too much sugar in it. So don't keep these guys in the refrigerator. Keep them in a cool place that's not bone dry. If it's bone dry, as in desert, you're going to get shriveled potatoes. So that's not cool either. You don't want to have your heart set on wonderful cottage fries on a cold winter morning, and you go and you pick up the potato and you go, oh.
Well, that's how the farmhouse is. So the farmhouse has dry heat. And every time I've tried to cut the potatoes and get them ready for planting and put them in there to kind of just dry them out a little bit so they don't rot in the ground right away when I put them in if it's wet ground, just a little bit of a scab on the skin. I'll come back after a weekend and they're all completely shriveled. So
yes, you've got some examples here.
Green potatoes, you can actually see the difference of color.
Yeah, look
it's
at
kind of
that.
shocking. But yeah, you don't want to use the green potatoes because those ones are slightly toxic.
Yeah, they're slightly toxic, but they have a bitter taste, so it's not something you're looking for.
No.
You know, and if you just have a green spot on your potato, maybe you can peel that away or cut it out.
This one's fully green though.
Yeah, this is all green, so you definitely don't want those guys.
And that's when the sunlight has hit it is when they turn green.
Yeah.
So.
And the other thing about potatoes is, they look tough, but if you bounce these guys, you're going to get bruising, and bruising that will lead to rotting. So you want to be careful when you handle them. I mean, you don't have to baby them to, like that, but
you can.
but you don't want to drop them on the floor and say, oh, they'll be fine, because they won't.
Yeah.
So you have to be nice to them and turn them every now and again. And what about sprouts? What about when you get sprouts on these guys?
Well, it depends on when you get the sprouts. So if it's if it's planting time next year, awesome, wonderful. I'm so glad you have sprouts. If it's now, you want to kind of pinch those sprouts off with your fingertips.
Yeah, you don't need a knife to do it. Right?
Yeah, no, you can just kind of wiggle them off with your finger. If you want to use a knife, you can, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, and they pretty much rise up off the surface, so it's not that hard to get them off.
It's pretty easy.
But keep those guys away, and your potato, given a nice dark, not too dry, not too wet location, it's going to stay good for you throughout the winter.
Oh yeah.
Yummy.